gentlemen, I'm your host, Keith Andrew, and welcome to the last episode of Season 12. That's right, it is officially 100, and that means we have reached our goal of 1,200 episodes. That's right, 1,200 episodes. Originally, I was saying 1,100, but now it's 1,200. Here's a great guess. But the first subject we're going to talk about is icebreakers. So tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Sean Bennett. I grew up in a small town in Florida, and I always wanted to be an actor. So, with a bag and a dream, I came and I moved to New York City. How you doing? And I've pursued acting, and I've worked in pretty much all mediums. I used to do a lot with the soaps One Life to Live and All My Children. Probably the most airtime I've had was on a reality show, Worst Cooks in America, with Burrell and Bobby Flay, and I have those photos as well. I starred in one of their seasons, which was an interesting experience. I also do a lot of MC hosting work, motivational speaking. I'm available for bar mitzvahs, weddings. Feel free to rent me, call me, SeanPBennett.com. But from all the things I do, along the way, I was traveling for work as a spokesperson, and I was the one who tended to get upgraded to like the hotel suite or first class. And I had coworkers who were like, "How do you do this?" So I wrote a book called Luxury Steals and Deals, which you can get on Amazon. And yeah, it's all about that, how to like get big ticket items and not pay for it because, as an actor, sometimes we're making great money and sometimes we're not. So, if it's for free or if it's cheap, it's for me. And so that's what the book's about. So that's a little bit, about me. I like to see a lot of theater, as well. I still love New York City all these years later. And I'm very happy and proud to be on your show, Keith. So thank you for having me and congratulations on all your success and all those episodes. You're a busy dude.
No, absolutely. We have so many great things we want to talk about, but I will make an exception. I don't normally do my speech, but I may bring it back for this season. But if I may, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. Just prove to them, still amount to something. I might bring that back for season 13, but I use an AI application. So instead of saying it over and over and over, I was like, why not make a song out of it? So when you watch the introduction of the show, it's my speech, but like in a rock song or a jazz song, each season has a different variation of the speech. I thought it was really good. Instead of this is not about me, okay? This is about you. You're taking the time to be on my show, and I'm here to support you. I'm not here, kiss your ass or anything, or blow smoke or anything.
But
By
I'm out.
by you being here, that says everything because you're supporting a host with disability. In return, you have a whole half hour to say and do whatever you want, and it's a win-win. I get something, you get something. But this next subject I do want to bring up is sports. When you were in college, were you a study nerd or party animal? And did you do any sports growing up?
Okay, well, it's kind of funny. It's almost interrelated to what you said, but not fully. I, it's interesting. I've always been a partier, but I always got good grades as well. The only thing, it depends though on the subject. I don't know if I really never was diagnosed, but has a little bit ADHD. If I'm interested in a subject, it's much easier for me to learn it. So I never really liked math. And so I never was really good at math. So that's one area where I wouldn't get good grades. But anything that you can kind of BS or talk your way through, which is 90% of the subjects from history, social studies, philosophy, of course, acting, I guess, is just, perception. But anyhow, I would do great. As far as sports, growing up, I had a lot of things, against me, but like most of them, I didn't even realize because I had a very supportive mother. But for instance, I had a little speech impediment where I couldn't say anything with TH. So, the kids would like inadvertently kind of like bring it up to make fun. So they'd be like, count for us. So I'd be like, one, two, three. And then I'd be like, and then I always liked, being a performer and reading. So I'd be like, she ran throughout the woods. And then they'd be like, ha ha ha. I'd be like, damn it. And then, I was growing up in a single parent family. My parents divorced, and after school, I had no kids to play with in my area. It was like a retiree community. So, a 70-year-old didn't want to play with a 9-year-old. So I would eat. And so I wound up becoming a very large child. And to the fact where I even had to shop at the Sears Husky section, which, I'm like, they named it after a dog. And so that's where I used to have to get my Catholic school uniforms. And I also even had a lazy eye as a kid. And they made me at one time, I went in Florida. They thought it was going to catch on. It was the world's first underground school, but essentially it was like, I guess, a bit underground, but Florida's swamp, so you can't really go very far. So they put a bunch of dirt and grass on top of a school. At the same time, I was having my vision problem, so I was wearing a patch on my eye, to strengthen this eye, and glasses. And every day the teacher would have us write down a subject. So this was like first, second grade or something. And the one day when my patch came off, everybody had to write that, like, oh, congratulations, Sean, his patch came off. And like my little eye cried because I was like so, touched. And then it was the underground school. So it would be all dark, no windows. And then it's Florida. Like, so it's like 90 degrees and sunny, like every day. And so we'd go out for recess and our little like gnome eyes would like burn, from the sun. But my point to all of this is, I was overweight, poor, I had a speech impediment, I had vision issues. But because I had one supportive person, mainly my mother, who always said, you're the most beautiful, talented guy in the world, I chose to believe that. And so these things did not hold me back, but it was stuff that I decided to just take on myself, So the glasses became contacts. I decided to drop weight and become more athletic. So starting in my high school performing arts, they would include musical theater, which included dance, and that would be my exercise. But for sports, because I grew up, like not being able to see very great and being overweight, it would hurt when I ran. So I never really liked sports for that reason. But now I work out regularly, and it's mainly for vanity and to stay in shape. But, I do appreciate it, more these days. And the main time I would watch games is like if my buddies or friends like were betting on a game, because I don't know, I like the idea of winning and gambling, although I don't do it regularly. So like the one time a year or whatever, I'd be like, sure, I'll bet on the Super Bowl. And so that's about it. So I don't have a big background with sports. It was mainly always really the arts and overcoming my obstacles. But, congratulations and God bless on like all you're doing. And it just shows anything, anyone really puts their mind to, they can do or find a way, and it may not work out exactly how you want, but sometimes it's better than we could even expect. You just have to be open to let the universe provide.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm not overweight, but my brother likes to tease me saying I have a fat neck or I have no neck. Going back to the kids, same thing. I swear my words. In some of my interviews, my disability is so small, I may swear here and there. I don't drink, but that's why I wear the filter glasses. I wear the filter glasses because I'm staring right at you, so it looks like I'm off to the side. So I don't have one eye here and one eye here because you're supposed to look at the green dot. But I think it's more professional to stare at the person. So
Sure.
instead of looking like Mr. Magoo, like this, I just hide my eyes. But no, I definitely wait. I did swear my words. I can't read, I can't write. I fall under the spectrum of the R word. I don't have a bachelor's or degree, but it is funny if I used to mention, people who like the BS. In a way, I have a bachelor's in BS because I like the bullshit. But I'm a good talker. So if I find something I'm motivated about, I don't take no for an answer. I'm like a dog with a bone. I do not take no for an answer. But the students are assholes. But I don't know if you had this with teachers. See, again, I swear my words. Some teachers would go out of their way to make it even worse. So yes, the students may make fun of you, but you can talk back to the student, hey, shut up, oh, no one's talking to you. You can't say that to a teacher because then they're like, well, if you tell me to shut up, I'm going to fail you for this whole year. So they pretty much have you in handcuffs saying, you know, you can't really talk back. But it is funny because I looked at some pictures. Some people refer to schools and prisons being similar. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But the same similar cafeteria, similar school buses. Do you think schools and prisons are kind of similar?
Oh, that's interesting. Nowadays, it looks it. Again, I grew up in rural Florida and like quite a while ago because I'm getting older. But anyhow, you'll see a lot of like fenced in areas and everything. And it's like one way, yes, it's to keep the bad guys out, but then you are making it almost like a prison like environment for the kids where it feels very trapped and, locked in. Whereas when I grew up, we didn't really have that. It wasn't as much of a concern. And I don't know if, crime just became more apparent in people's minds. So now they're trying to be more preventative, or if crime really did raise, or what exactly the reasoning is. I mean, and also I think a few things, I did grow up when I would go outside. Originally, I was in New York until my parents divorced when I was around 9. Then I moved to Florida. Anyhow, when I was in New York, there were kids in my neighborhood, and we would go out and play. And like, one of the parents would just kind of keep an eye from afar on us. But now I think a lot of times parents are even afraid to like let their kids out, and now everybody's so device centric that they're solo, and I think it really takes away from people's social skills, as well. And I think the other thing is, you just have to, everybody, like you do, believe in yourself and find what you do well. And hopefully you have somebody to support you. Because interestingly enough, I had one teacher, Mrs. Lipsky, I remember from 3rd grade, who wanted to skip me a grade because she really loved my writing skills and thought how smart I was. And then the following year after my parents' divorce, when I went to Florida, there was a teacher because I was the one from New York. And then I remember everybody's like, you have an accent. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh my God, I don't know. What do you mean? I don't have an accent. You guys all talk funny. Because like everybody had an accent where I was in New York, in Queens, New York. Like, oh, how you doing? And so the teacher was saying I wasn't turning in my work and I was really bad. So my mom went in and she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I know my son. My son was just offered to be skipped a grade. Like, what are you doing? And then she even reported the teacher, on my behalf to the principal. And the principal's like, oh, she's like a grandma here. And then my mom's like, well, maybe grandma needs to retire. So I'm like, oh. So yeah, so I've had like issues with, teachers as well. And I think it all depends, but sometimes, you're lucky and you have a great supportive environment. So hopefully, if there's any parents of kids, hopefully they have the best situation. I mean, I'm scared now with the cuts with the Department of Education, how it's going to affect kids with disabilities and, people who need the extra support and kids in rural areas. And hopefully it'll turn around or won't be affected or it'll be corrected later on.
Well, we can always talk about politics in a little bit, but actually now, if you want, you can talk about it now, you can talk about it later.
Whatever. I'll just go. You lead the way, sir. It's all good.
How do you feel? Because I am a big professional wrestling fan. I love Dragon Ball, and I bring that to the grave with me. I love wrestling too, but not to sound morbid. But with Linda McMahon, the only reason Linda McMahon is in that position of power is for years. She and her husband were best friends with the Trumpster, and that's the only reason. And he pardoned everyone on January 6th. He probably pardoned Vince McMahon. And okay, well, you can help me, and I'm gonna help you. And now I mean, she's not a smuck, okay? She's not a smuck. She seems all right. I don't personally know her, but she doesn't have any qualifications to be in charge of the education and to defund public education. That how I see it is there's going to be more charter schools, there's going to be more private schools. Anything where they can make more money, that's where it's going to be. Honestly, I would have picked somebody else, but I have no control over it. And now, I think it was today actually, um, shithead, freedom of speech, fired a lot of people from Social Security. And it's kind of like, and it's the expression of if you say it's broken, and you purposely take it apart, say it's broken and broken, then you're gonna say, well, the only way to fix it is do it our way. And it's, I don't know. That's why I do my talk show. That's why I don't watch the news because it makes you paranoid after a while. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I am a little bit of a news junkie, but I don't think it's really healthy because there are things where we do feel a little bit powerless. I do believe, though, if, kids can't get free lunches at school, in the
Right.
next months, and if people are delayed or not getting their Social Security checks, there's so much anger and so many people are not happy with their current situation in life that I really feel there'll be a lot of, upheaval, maybe violence, not that I'm condoning it or wishing it. I just don't feel they'll get away with it, to be honest. Once people feel the impact, because it's one thing to be like, I'm on team A, you're on team B, I'm right, you're wrong. But when it affects you personally, I think it changes who cares what team you're on. You needed this support. Like my mom relies on her Social Security check. If she doesn't get it, that's a big deal. So, we'll see how it all plays out. Hopefully, I'm trying to be an optimist. It's not starting that way in my mind. But funny enough, I did an Oreos commercial with the Manning brothers and Donald Trump, and Ivanka stopped by. And now on TV, Ivanka always looks a little plastic pretty, but seems almost like a Stepford wife and no personality to me. That's my interpretation. But in real life, funny enough, I liked her a lot. Now, this is all many years ago, way before the presidency, probably like 10 years ago. Or no, even more, like 15 probably. Anyhow, when she stopped by, she lit up the room. She was very charismatic. Why she stopped by on an Oreos commercial, don't know. It's double stuffed Oreos was the theme. And anyhow, I was the Oreo, go figure. And anyhow, and then the Manning brothers were like, they were the double. And then you had one of the gentlemen from SNL was imitating Trump and then the real Trump. So he was pretty much what you would expect. When he messed up, he blamed somebody else and said it wasn't his fault. But overall, he did good. The Manning brothers weren't really actors, but they were very kind and nice. And Ivanka lit up the room. So, I mean, it's just an interesting memory. But little did I know as an Oreo that, they'd wind up being sitting in the White House like 10 years later, like kind of crazy.
It is. I always joked about I would love to have The Rock as president, but again, you don't want just because they seem like they have a strong presence about them. Celebrities don't usually make good presidents.
Well, no, and we make them like our kings and queens. Like, so
Right.
we worship celebrity. I mean, and the one thing, I tend to vote Democrat, that they need to learn as a party. It's now American Idol. Like, it doesn't really seem to matter how many qualifications you have. If you look at a Marjorie Taylor Greene or what have you, it's whoever makes the best television. So they need to, get attractive people who are very good on TV and teach them the policy later and keep a few of the old senior citizens who are all over the place in Washington, to actually run the policy. And, it's essentially all marketing, and people just like the song and dance. They like the idea of it. They like the entertainment value. I mean, so, to your point, I mean, it's almost like the White House is a wrestling match, and like, and he's trying like, you're going down, to like everybody. And so, interestingly enough, but it's just like a whole shift in perception. I think it started with Kennedy, where like the first decent looking president, and then everybody was like, oh, Kamala, we want to be them. And then it's just gotten worse from there as far as like politics and media combining.
So the next question I want to talk to you about is I'm not looking at your profile right now, and I've seen this catchphrase before, but I want to bring it to your attention. Obviously, you wrote it, so you know it. Bringing value to you and your product and business. What do you mean by that?
I think the number one way to get work and to get somebody's interest, I mean, we're all selfish. I think no matter how big we are, we're like kind of children. It's all about us. And so if you find out what problem you can solve for somebody else or what value you can bring to them is why they want you. So, even in dating, somebody may want somebody because they find them attractive, because they have money. It's what you're bringing to the table. It's rarely about what you want. So you can have your objectives and be like, yes, I want to make the $5,000 by speaking at this conference. conference. However, what can you do for the conference that seems unique, or sell it in a way that is unique and brings value to them, whether it's on a spiritual, mental, physical, emotional level, and that's one thing too that I think, is a great gift of being a performer, is touching people, because you make that connection through your art, vicariously, because there's something that you do or your character does or says that is relatable, like, oh, I had that experience, like, oh, I know how they feel, or oh, what's going to happen next, that brings people in. So it's always about, what value can I bring to the situation? What do I have to offer, that eventually will win? And I think the funny thing is, as an actor, I've realized, the projects, I'm like, I'm so good for this. I'm going to get it. I'm great. I really, really want it. It's a big opportunity. I never get it. And I think probably because I'm so wrapped up in me. And also it's about that desperation and hunger. Like somehow, even if you like suppress it and you're not saying it, it somehow reads, because energy is contagious, And so it's always the time where I'm like, oh, I booked a commercial talking about sports, and I didn't really watch sports. It was for Spike Lee, Charles Barkley, and Coors. And it was just pretty people like holding beers and da 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 da, or, like, not to give myself a pat on the back, but everybody else was pretty. So, like, think of me, whatever you want. Anyhow, and they're like, tell me about your sports. Like, what's your favorite sports? And so I just went like so stereotypical, because I had nothing to say on the subject. So I'm like, Tiger Woods, there'll never be another one. I'm like, oh, the Manning brothers, they're great. Every like big name, Mike Tyson, never a better boxer, Muhammad Ali. Like I just chose and maybe that's why they booked me. They're like, this guy has big balls, because he doesn't know anything. He's using all the names that like my grandmother would know. And somehow I wound up booking the commercials. So again, even like when you're out of your comfort zone, just roll with it. That's another thing I would say, because that's what I did. And because I didn't think I was going to get it, I was like, oh, there's no way I got this. I got it 20,000 later. So.
And you've done so much. You are, if anyone out there for $15, they can buy a cameo from you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm on the app Cameo, so feel free to hit me up. I mean, I'm not being particularly funny now, but typically I'm funny. So you can go to my website, SeanPBennett.com, see some of my reels. Everything I said on Worst Cooks, to a matter of fact, because I do, emceeing for different events. So one of the companies that books me for MC work, mainly for kids' parties. Anyhow, they're like, oh, did you write what you said or whatever? It's like, it was all improv. It was like all me. So, of course, like any situation, that's the other thing, we haven't done it here, but typically I try to find a humor in like everything, because it just makes life so much more enjoyable to like sit back and laugh. And, especially when you don't have control over something, and life can be dark. So like for me, as inappropriate as it might be, like there's no topic I don't joke about. I'm just like, whatever. I'm like, it could be death, whatever. I'm like, there is something funny, in it, if you're able to like just let go and not personalize everything.
No, you're absolutely right. And what George Collins said is the content. Anything can be meant as a joke. It's the way as you're using it. It doesn't matter if you use any of the famous letters, the F word, the N word. It doesn't matter. It's how you're using it. If you're meant to say it in a funny, joking kind of way, okay. But you did bring up a subject where people are just too damn sensitive. It's kind of like I grew up in the early 90s. I was born in 88. And I miss it because you sneeze the wrong way, you're going to offend somebody. You fart, you either sneeze or you got to cough or you got to fart the wrong way. Someone's always going to be criticized. And it's stupid. It's kind of like, why did we have to even go down this road? And you turn the slightest little thing into a huge issue. It's kind of like, well, what's he expressing? If you have an issue, here's a tissue.
I like that. I've never heard it. I do think people are like way too sensitive, and I think they got to get over it. Like, not everything in life and not everyone in life is nice or kind. So move on, and how many things are really that important? I think I remember like one of my day jobs when I first moved to New York that I did briefly for a few months was cater waitering. And people would stress out over a damn mushroom. And I'm like, it's a mushroom, people, get over it. And it's like, or, if it wasn't plated right or like everything just so. And at the end of the day, unless the client's a total beast or whatever, no one cares. No one's going to remember, and even when things really do matter, like a loved one's health, it really just matters to you because the doctor has many other patients. They can't personalize it or they would go mentally ill. So, everything's only the importance you put on it. And, talking about like age and times, I honestly don't get, the whole they, them thing
Yeah.
because I can't be plural. Now, if somebody wants to be called that, I don't care. Like, I'll call you whatever you want to be called, whatever. But what I would hope, honestly, like, or this is my mindset, and I don't know somebody else's, but if you don't feel you fit a label, I'd rather not fit a label than try to get one or create one because who wants to be boxed in? I think it's more powerful to not have that label. But that's how I view things, and maybe it's just me.
No, I agree. Now we're gonna wrap up the show. I do have one question I want to ask you, but we're gonna do a new segment called Funny Posts. And these are actually funny kids books, and not real books, but let's just say funny posts of the day. So the first one is, and it's called Kitty Shits in the Dollhouse. And the next one it's called by Nancy True, My Cat is a Creepy Asshole. The other one is it's a toothbrush that says I hate my job and there's a roll of toilet paper. It says, oh please. The other funny kids book, if people are interested, is a bear on the cover. It says, go to sleep, tasty campers.
Oh,
And this is and this is a true saying in life. Life is like toilet paper. You would either get rolled on or you're taking crap from someone. And then the truth is you're always gonna take shit from someone because it doesn't matter. It's talk about breaking the glass ceiling. It's really cool. Every time I say break the glass ceiling, there's a special effect on the screen. But it's talking about labels. People say, "Hey, you're a talk show host with a disability. Do you only interview people with disabilities?" And I'm like, "No. If you say it like that, you sound like an asshole." And so, for me, I'm turning myself into an example, showing you labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. To prove to them, you can still amount to something. Do you agree?
I fully agree. Because I'm like the only one in my family who loves the arts, who likes theater. So, to me, I feel like Family Guy and I'm Stewie. Like so everybody else, and so I'm just like, hey, mom, can you take me to the musical? And they're like, who the hell is this? And because like, nobody else was into that stuff, and so yes, but I didn't try to be like, oh, label me differently or whatever. Just listen to your heart, follow your passion, and like you are, and you'll be okay.
And my last thing for you, then we can talk off the air. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what made you say yes, and how do you feel now?
I'm an attention whore, and so I like any opportunity, and also like I like meeting new people. I like talking. Yeah, I'm glad for this opportunity. I'm glad I got to meet you. For anybody watching, feel free to check out my website, SeanPBennett.com. Luxury Steals and Deals is the book I wrote about luxury deals. If you're looking to fly first class, get deals on housing even, like that was the biggest deal I got. I learned from an acting marketing course. But yeah, I appreciate, any and all opportunity to express myself and to meet new people. And I thank you for the platform and the opportunity.
Absolutely. Our goal is to reach 500 to 1,000 views. This will be shared on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. It was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. You're more than welcome to be back on the show anytime you like. And stay tuned for Off the Air. But wrapping up, until we meet again, I catch you later. Thank you, and have a good night. Supporting me, my message is all that matters.